Hello and welcome to the Games Are Fun podcast. My name is Luke Armstrong and I'm your host. Joining me this week are three fantastic individuals. First off, we have my good friend Adam Beagle. Adam, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to that we're making an episode this week after several weeks of just kind of like question marks. So glad to
Right.
be here. We also have another Beagle brother joining us, the king himself, Lord the King S. Steven, how's it going, man?
It's going really well. This week is flying by. I can't believe it's Thursday night already at time of recording, and it's been a ton of fun. I'm just glad to be back after having a week off last week. Feet up, harassing you guys in chat. It was a good time.
Yeah, we had to give old Steven a timeout on the FF14 free trial talk. So,
Banned from the own
yeah.
podcast.
If you missed that, it was a good time. And then, of course, returning to the Games Are Fun podcast this week. He joined us last week. We had such a great time talking about Indie World. The one and only KneeSean. KneeSean, welcome back to the show. How the hell are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. Hopefully, I don't disappoint you more again this week like I did last week.
KneeSean, you can't disappoint us, man. Honestly, you can't disappoint anyone with that shirt you got on there. Because for
I
audio
know.
listeners, you're missing out on KneeSean's cool dude shirt. He's ready for summer.
Hashtag cool dude, guys. Let's get it trending.
Yes, let's do it. All right. So if you caught last week's episode, you would know that we had a plan to talk about Indie World, and then we planned on talking about our gaming turn-ons and turn-offs. And we had so much fun talking about Indie World and talking about all the great indies that were shown off at that presentation that, we didn't have time to get to this topic. So we wanted to make it its own episode. We pushed it to this week. And on the plus side, we also have Steven joining us, so he can give his in voice rather than just hanging in the chat, which would have been the case last week. So that's really great. So that's what's going to be the show this week. We're going to give our gaming turn-ons, turn-offs. Adam's going to kind of give more details on what that looks like when we get to it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Before we get to this show, we wanted to remind you that Games Are Fun is a weekly video game podcast. Each week, Adam, Steven, and myself join together to talk about video game news, trending industry topics, and reviews on recent game releases. The podcast is available on all major podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. Just search for Games Are Fun podcast on any of the podcast platforms out there and it should pop up. Also, this episode of the Games Are Fun podcast is being streamed live over on twitch.tv/Games Are Fun podcast. And we stream all our episodes now over on twitch.tv. So make sure you're tuning in every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's when we're usually going live on Twitch. So yeah, if you're listening on audio services, that's great. But if you want to have a fun time, come out, hang with chat, make sure you come out to our live shows. But if you can't make it live, we still have options for you. You want to watch the video version, all our streams are archived over on our YouTube channel. So head over to that. You can find our YouTube channel in our show notes, as well as just searching Games Are Fun podcast in YouTube. We should show up. We don't have a custom URL link yet on our YouTube channel. So it would be much appreciated if you could go over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we're posting new videos over there. And that will really help us out because, we don't necessarily have the time for all these great projects and plans that we have kind of on the go for our YouTube channel. But at some point, it's going to be more than just stream archives. We're going to get some more short form content. It's just a matter of time. So make sure you're subscribed over there right now so that you can catch all the new uploads. All right. So a couple things for housekeeping before we move on to our big topic. And the first thing I wanted to mention is that Steven has a special announcement to share. And it's in regards to a 12-hour charity stream that he's going to be doing. So Steven, why don't you take it away and tell us all about that? And Steven, you are muted.
Pro streamer. Remember, I'm a pro streamer as I get into this.
It's true.
May 7th, Friday, May 7th. I'll be doing a 12-hour charity stream in support of Stack Up, which is a really great 501c3 military charity. That basically what they do is they support active and veteran service members from the U.S. and allied nations by getting them things like supply crates and support through volunteers and things like that to veteran communities. And basically are promoting positive mental health and suicide prevention through gaming and geek culture. Now, me as a veteran myself, as well as a gamer, gaming was a big part of my kind of reacclimation whenever I got back from overseas, and really helped me connect with my friends again, helped out with my mental health and finding a healthy coping mechanism through gaming as well. And that's kind of what they do also. So on May 7th, as I mentioned, is going to be a 12-hour stream where I'm going to be raising money for this incredible organization. And it's going to be Final Fantasy 14 focused, but we're going to have a ton of fun. There's going to be a glamour contest, or basically a dress-up contest. We've got a artist that's on call right now to do a commissioned artwork piece for the first place winner of that contest, as well as the second place will get a sketch of their character. And the sketches that this artist produces could be a first prize in and of themselves. We're also going to do a foot race. I'm going to put some folks through a foot race across the Eorzea and watch them, lament as they run on foot from one end of the world to the other. We've got some giveaways plans, as well as some special donation incentives to get us to do some pretty wacky, memey content for Final Fantasy 14 as well. And if you get a chance to, 9 a.m. Eastern time until 9 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be live. Would love to have you drop by and say hi. It's just bound to be a really great time. Very excited for it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's a great thing that you're doing, Steven, raising money for a great organization. And I can't wait to catch that 12-hour stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, May 7th, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Twitch.tv/LorelyKingS. All right. Next point that I wanted to make in housekeeping is a kind of a personal plug. Next Saturday at 7 p.m. at Mountain Standard Time, I'm going to be hosting a retro PC game night on twitch.tv/LukeTheLlama. So I'm going to be streaming a little longer than I normally do, probably 4 to 5 hours. And I'm going to start earlier, so those East Coasters can maybe tune in too. And I'm going to play just a variety of old retro PC games from the 90s up to like the early 2000s. of kind of being pretty loose with the term retro here. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's going to be next Saturday. I don't even have the date of what next Saturday is. Let me see.
The first.
So May 1st. Thank you, Steven.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch.tv/LukeTheLlama. Adam, you got something going on this Sunday for a stream? You're going to be tasting wine gums or something like that?
Yeah, so the gauntlet was thrown in our Games Are Fun Discord by none other than Mr. BLP Entertainment, So Fancy. I forget how the topic even came up, but he definitively said that wine gums, something that I don't think exists in the States. He claims that they're better than gummy bears, claims that they're better than Jelly Bellies. Basically, they're the ultimate candy. So I had him, and Luke, you said it's old people candy though, is that right?
I mean, it's not like weird hard candy that you find at like at your grandma's house or something like that, but
Yeah.
I would put it in the category of candy that old people eat. Because
Okay.
it's not tasty and as some of the other candies out there like gummy bears that are truly a delight to eat.
So I placed an order for some. They arrived this week. I did a little just kind of silly unpackaging or unboxing of it on stream Tuesday evening. And yeah, so Sunday 1 p.m. Eastern, the real time zone, I'll be doing a stream. I'm going to start off with this tasting of wine gums. I'm going to compare it against gummy bears. I don't have Jelly Bellies because I don't really like Jelly Bellies, but I do have Starburst jelly beans, which are the king of jelly beans. And I also want to get when I first did a Google search for wine gums, the first picture that came up looked a lot like something we have here in the States called Juji fruits, which I think also exist in Canada.
Yeah,
Is
I've
that
had
right?
those. Yeah.
So it looked like Juji fruits, which I don't care for. So I'm gonna get some anyway, just to kind of compare and see if it really does, like if that's the equivalent, like U.S. candy. And I'm gonna taste them and I'm gonna declare a winner. But yeah, so I have gummy bears. I got the wine gums. I just need to pick up the Juji fruits, and I have the jelly beans. So it's gonna be a sweet treat showdown. And then after that, I'm gonna go into my run through of Bloodborne. So Bloodborne I haven't played since it released back, what was it, 2015 or 2016? I can't remember when. But it was the first game that I watched a stream of on Twitch. It was the first game that I streamed on Twitch. So I've been kind of on and off streaming for like basically since the launch of Bloodborne, whatever year that was. And I had a subscriber goal on my channel, which was met thanks to some generosity in the community. Thank you all so much for making that happen. I'm terrified to play it because it's been years since I played. I used to be actually quite good at the game, to where I wouldn't have, like, not that I was speedrunning it, but I wouldn't have batted an eye at doing a playthrough of it. I would have been like, oh, yeah, this will be fun. But I'm terrified. It's been so long. I don't know if I have any skill at that game anymore. It could end up being a disaster. We'll see. But it is a great game, so I'm sure it'll be fun either way.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that this Sunday, everyone. Twitch.tv/AdamPalooza85.
Yep.
All right.
1:30 p.m. Eastern. I think I said 1. It'll probably be closer to 1:30. So
Perfect. All right. Let's get on with our topic of the show, which is gaming turn-ons and turn-offs. So, Adam, why don't you take it from here?
sure. Yeah. So this idea kind of came to me. I think I mentioned, I might have talked about this a little bit last episode when we didn't quite get to it, but the idea came to me. I was playing a game. I don't even remember which game it was at this point because I would love to have it in the list here that I've generated, but I'm like, this is just such a turnoff for me. I don't even really want to continue playing this game. And it got me thinking, like, what things in games would kind of turn me off or make me not want to continue playing or go back to it, versus what things would potentially sell me on a game. So maybe a game that I wasn't interested, that I saw a specific mechanic of and was like, oh, maybe I could get into this. Or maybe a game that I was interested in, but then something shows up and I'm like, ooh, I really don't like this. I don't think I want to play this anymore. So I thought this could be a really fun episode idea for us to go through and talk about the things that we like and dislike about games, things that maybe would take a game that we're not interested in and turn it into something that we end up buying, or maybe a game that we were sold on and it's a day one purchase. And then we start playing it and it's like, okay, this game really isn't for me. So that's sort of where the idea came from. And we've been rolling around on this for months now, since potentially late last year, late 2020, and then early 2021. And yeah, just it hasn't happened yet. And we tried last week, and then we were overrun with glorious indie titles, and just we didn't want to shoehorn it into that episode. So now it gets to be its very own dedicated episode. So here we are.
Awesome. Okay.
And we already have a shout out for what I'm guessing is a turnoff
I would assume
from
so.
Taylor the Savior in chat. We have Escort Missions. That is a great, again, assuming it's a turnoff, because I mean, if you like Escort Missions, you are one in a million, my friend. So,
Well,
yeah, I guess anyway, I figure maybe we'll start with I don't know. Let's start with the turnoff. Let's see if there's anything spicy in there with the turnoffs. So I guess Luke, you want to give us your first turnoff?
sure. And honestly, I'm just going to be echoing Taylor because he already got my number one, and that is Escort Missions. Escort Missions, are kind of notorious for being a thing in video games that no one really likes, because you have basically dead weight that you're responsible for now, and usually that dead weight doesn't have any way of defending themselves. Now, over the years, I will say some of these escort missions have gone a little bit better, right? We have people that can kind of do their own thing, right? You look at God of War, you have Atreus. Atreus is up there, messing with the enemies, and you don't really have to worry about Atreus. But if we look back to a game like Resident Evil 4, one that I freshly played, and chat, if you or listeners, you came in my streams, you know exactly the name I'm going to point out, and that is Ashley, and she is the worst thing to ever happen to Resident Evil. I'll just say that. Um, yeah, I mean, like escorting missions, they're a pain, right? Like it can really bog down a game, especially when you're hitting a point in the game that you're hitting your tread, you're feeling good about it, and it just slows everything to a screeching halt when you have to do an escort mission because it's like, that pace you were really enjoying. Well, guess what? We're totally removing that from you and now giving you different priorities. And yeah, it's just, I think the reason why I'm turned off to it is the obvious reasons, but I just don't think there's too many out there uh, that it just seems like a pointless thing to throw in to kind of make it work for the story, right? We need this character to somehow get over to this other place, or we need this character, they're integral to the plot, let's bring them in. But most of the time it just I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. So unless it's like a game where it makes sense, like God of War, where you are doing a quest or a mission as a couple and you have somebody, that makes a lot of sense. um or if we have to escort somebody, just give them a gun or just give them that opportunity to kill or defend themselves, right? So I don't know about you guys, but like, can we even think of fun escort missions?
Yes, there is. Well, missions, no. Games with it, yes. So I mean, The
Sure.
Last of Us, I think, is an easy like that is the absolute like exception to the rule, right?
Correct.
And God of War was another one, like you mentioned. I think that was a solid one too. But The Last of Us, Ellie, like she's totally like self-reliant. You don't have to worry. Like the whole game's an escort mission, but you don't have to protect her. Like she doesn't like it's not, oh, if Ellie takes so much damage, then you lose and it's game over. It's like you just kind of do your own thing. She's there and she's out of harm's way, or she's doing Ellie things, or it's just one less thing you have to worry about, even though the basis of the game is you are escorting her across the country. So I think it did a really great job. As far as just missions within games, I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but yeah, they're I'm sure few and very very far between.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely like, what was it? There was oh, there was last gen. There was a game on 360 that I played that, um, you know what? I can't even think of the name, so I'm not even gonna bother plugging it. But yeah, I could do away with them. I don't think they make sense anymore in this day and age. So that's why they're like number one big turn off for me.
And BLP Entertainment, the classy boy himself, shouting out Ico in the chat,
Mm.
which, I think Team Ico is pretty good at like escort mission based games with Ico, and then the Last Guardian,
Hmm.
which if you think about it, you're just kind of making a second player AI do your work for you. And if the whole game is based around that concept, I think it works out. But just like regular games dropping in an escort mission, like Breath of the Wild has an escort mission where like you have to make a Goron follow you up Death Mountain so you can launch him like a cannonball. And honestly, it's hard enough like avoiding guardians and when you're by yourself, and now you have to have this giant man baby rock like you whistling at him like a dog to stop. It's just like you said earlier, just the fun you're having, the pace you're setting comes to a grinding halt.
All right. Steven, you want to give us yours?
So for my probably biggest gaming turnoff, and with me being a lot into
Anything that's not Final Fantasy or No Man's Sky.
well, I was just gonna go as a overreaching kind of any sort of multiplayer game, right? Is toxic community can really shut me off from a game. Um, you know the and this misconception of mine about WoW is going to be one of the things that kind of has changed over time. Getting to know some WoW players, so I always thought that WoW had a very toxic community, but I'm starting to learn that there's actually those out there that aren't. But whenever you have folks that are in the game, and what I mean by this, I don't mean like in a shooter, somebody just kind of like, oh yeah, I totally blew you away, noob, and they run off and they keep on playing the game. It's the ones that kind of do an elitist attitude over top of you, the ones who want to gatekeep content from you because one reason or another, or you accidentally perish in some mechanic and they automatically just want to up and quit whatever you're doing at that time. Those are the ones that I'm talking about. They are really what I consider the toxic version of a community. And I think for any game, whenever it comes to that thing, that's one thing that can take me out of a game very quickly, just because I hate seeing it. I hate for me, I can deal with it and I can power through, but I hate to see other people move away from a great game because of something like that going on within a games community. So that's probably my biggest one. It's the best one that I can come up with, because again, I do a lot of these multiplayer things more recently. A lot of Final Fantasy 14 stuff. No Man's Sky has a multiplayer community, so it's within those communities that you can find, if you can find a really great supportive, understanding, patient community, you've got a game that I'm going to stick with. But if you've got one that's going to put in an elitist attitude, gatekeep you from completing things, not teach you how to play a game that you may be new to, that's the kind of thing that's going to make me step away from it easy.
Yeah, I'll agree with Steven. That was near the top of my list for turn off twos, is like the ultra competitive slash toxic communities that some games have. Because for example, one of my favorite games is Super Smash Brothers, but that community, like the ones that are really good at that game, near the top of like most toxic, just kind of they don't let you enjoy the game if you're like just a casual player.
Yeah, that's a good mention there. Yeah, I have seen a lot of toxicity in that community, which is really sad to see because it's such a fun game and it's supposed to be, accessible for everybody, and to, see that kind of toxicity within that community is pretty rough. Yeah, it's not great. So, NeeSean, did you have one that you wanted to mention?
Um, Probably it's not like a huge turnoff for me, but a game that I always seem to avoid are games that have like a lot of resource management in them. So a lot of those sim cities or sim roller coasters, or even games like Dota, or where you're just in charge of all these factions and different groups, and you have to like juggle 13 different things at once, and it's always like some sort of high pressure situation. And the job I have as like a professional chef, I'm just juggling 13 things a day, 10 hours a day anyway. So when I get home, I don't want to do that again for my enjoyment purposes. So yeah, any game where they're making you keep track of multiple things at a time with high stakes, quote unquote, going on, I it just turns me off.
It's funny because I kind of go in the opposite direction with that. Like for my RTS games that I like to play, or even like a turn-based strategy, like a Stellaris or Civilization, I find that if I'm constrained by too little in those games, SimCity, the most recent SimCity that they came out with, where they lock you into that one plot, you don't have anything else to be able to build into. That shut me down off that game, because as soon as cities came around into my library, completely took over. So it gave me more of everything that SimCity had in it and everything like that. So before I do move on, um, Twitch chat has some great comments here on this topic. Back to the community, if you guys don't mind if I get into them. Taylor the Savior, as a longtime WoW player, the community definitely can be a really hit or miss. Been lucky to play with a lot of really cool non-toxic guilds, but the game at large is questionable. That's not the first time I've heard that. Cloda Lunaria, main factor why she left the game is because of the community. So it's one of those things that while I've met a couple people out there within the WoW community, it's one of those things that definitely builds into it. And then this another important one from Cloda. For me, being a woman in gaming, toxic masculinity in games sucks for me to the point where I simply won't play Overwatch anymore competitively. So again, it's another one of those those gatekeeping toxic attitudes that prevents somebody from playing a game. But yeah, onto your point with the resource management, give me more. The more is in those type of games. I'm kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum with you on that one, KneeSean. But that is a good point. It's completely understandable.
Yeah, you can keep them.
So just the pile on, I just want to mention it does suck to hear that from Chloe, and just from all women. So and it's not just in games, right? It can be anywhere. Like it can be on Twitch. Like I see so many times on Twitch where a woman who's just trying to do their best. Sometimes they're already successful or they're trying to be successful at it. And there's so much gatekeeping by men that is keeping them from hitting another level because they can't just accept that women can be gamers too, where they can be, they can do IRL or just chatting or whatever. And it's very frustrating to see. And it's kind of a shock because you feel like we as a race as a whole, we've seen a lot of progression over the last, 20, 15 years or whatever. And to see things like this happening, it makes you think, have we really progressed? Or it makes me think, have we really progressed as much as I thought we have been? And it's not just women, it's people of color, it's, marginalized, marginalized groups of people that are in some cases being just completely targeted. And it makes them want to stop streaming. It makes them want to stop gaming. We see from Chloe, it makes people quit games altogether. And it's really frustrating to see. So hopefully that's a hurdle that we can get over at some point. People just, and if that's, if you're a bad person and you can't respect someone that's on Twitch or gaming because of their gender or race or, whatever, go do something else. Like, don't be hateful to that person or that community. Like, just go be a bad person somewhere else and let this person thrive. So,
and I know as 4 straight white males, we probably we're using our privilege right now to talk about it. But I think, yeah, just let people have fun. Don't if somebody enjoys something, who cares if they're a female, if they're LGBTQ or person of color. Just let people enjoy what they want. And as us, as I mentioned before, as straight white males, I know you three, all of your streams are always, very welcoming, very safe space for everybody. And I think we can use our platform to be a welcoming community to everybody that feels like that we want to be the norm in gaming, where most people, when you say, oh, gaming, they think of the toxic Call of Duty player or the toxic Smash Brothers community. But I mean, we can use our platform as a force of change. And I mean, that might be the biggest turnoff for a lot of people for gaming is the stereotype that we're all just a bunch of degenerates.
yeah, and it's so, I don't know, it feels so bad being someone with a small platform, feeling like having such a small voice that, I can't as myself make a difference. But as we're having here this discussion, if more people have these discussions, and I know there are people with large platforms that have spoken out against that too. And, I think they're just, there can never be enough is all I'm saying. So, make your voices heard, put an end to it.
I think Chloe put it perfectly. if I won't say it in real life, I won't say it on online either. And that's exactly it. It's really easy to hide behind a computer screen, be that keyboard warrior. But just remember that in this day and age, and we're seeing it happen, that just because you're online doesn't mean that you can't pay the consequence, right? There's not so much, you know, um, there's ways that people, and I'm not saying this now that I'm saying this out loud. It sounds like we'll find you and we will destroy your lives. But
He's like Liam Neeson and taking over here.
Yeah, I will
I have
find
a particular set of skills.
Yeah, exactly. But no, what I'm trying to get at is it's happening, right? We see it in this day and age where everything in our lives is pretty much out there for everyone to see. And just because your hand hiding behind a handle doesn't mean that you're hiding forever. And know that you're doing a lot of damage to somebody, and they don't deserve that. So, yeah, let's try to do our part. Be better, right? Be better people, and speak up when we see those moments where someone is being the victim of some of that toxicity that we've been talking about here.
Right on. Yep. Let's keep the conversation going, everybody. If you're listening, you have a platform, you have a voice, make sure that you get it out there. We need better community. We need better people all around. So, all right. So I guess going forward, it feels so weird going from such a heavy topic like that back into, okay, so in gaming, there's not a great segue for that. There really isn't. But yeah, so just I guess for my first turn off, I'm gonna go with stealth. I'm not a stealth gamer. I don't stealth games. Everyone really loves those. What are the Siphon Filter? I think it is. Or
Siphon Filter, Splinter Cell.
Splinter Cell, yeah. Splinter Cell was the one I was thinking of. But yeah, Siphon Filter, and then there's just so many of them that maybe look interesting, but I just can't play because I don't like stealth games. Like, I just want to just run in. I want the combat. I want the action. So just kind of sneaking around and not getting to do anything for me, what I would consider fun. I don't like stealth games. Now there are exceptions to that. I really like Ghost of Tsushima, and I really leaned into the stealth of that game. I think Luke and Steven, you guys wanted to, or at least Luke, you went the samurai route.
I never,
you didn't
if
like
stealth is optional, I'm like, see ya.
Yep. I was completely, I was so, and maybe this can segue into my next one, but with Ghost of Tsushima, that game pretty much nailed my opinion to the wall on it whenever it shoehorned me into a stealth mission. And I was so angry because I wanted to go the samurai route. And as the story progresses, it kind of keeps you in that, oh, you're this whole ghost and you're half ninja. No, like, I wanted to be a samurai. That's why I got this game. And it's like, here's all this ninja crap that we're going to throw at you. And oh, by the way, here's stealth mechanics. It's like, no, man. When's the samurai stealthing around? Never. Don't
Well,
wanna.
that's the whole point of the game, though. It's that duality. It's that we're taking someone that only knows this code of honor, and it's giving them this different side. It's sort of like, it's like Bruce Wayne turning into Batman, right? You got to embrace that dark side to get things done sometimes. You got to go vigilante to get things done sometimes. And I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was really cool. I liked the the abilities or the tools that you get. I thought it was just a lot of fun going through stealth. The Last of Us Part 2 was another one I didn't hate the stealth on. They did a pretty good job making that fun for the amount of sort of creeping around that you have to do. I generally enjoyed that. As the game got later in, and I just wanted to get to the story, I started ignoring that a little bit, and I just tried to run and gun as much as possible. But for the most part, I did kind of like the stealth in that game. I will say 2 games that I would like to play, but I just couldn't because the stealth really turned me off. And I think they kind of have this concept of, well, you can be stealthy or you can be, a little bit more aggressive. And I didn't really find that in these games, which is Dishonored and Deus Ex, which are two games that I feel like they're like you could do either or, but I felt like it was really like you had to be stealthy in those games because if you just tried to go in straight combat, you would get destroyed pretty quickly. So those two games felt a little inaccessible to me because I just couldn't handle the stealth of it. So, but yeah, that's mine or
Um,
my first one.
you name dropped somebody earlier there, Batman Bruce Wayne. I think the Arkham games do a really good
They
job
do it really well too.
of that
Absolutely,
balance of stealth sections and
Mhm.
action sections.
very
And
true.
like, I mean, I think that's why they're universally loved, because you actually feel like Batman. Like, you can scare people in the dark, or you can just drop down and break all their kneecaps.
Yep, good, solid mention there. Yep. All right. So do we want to go around the table with another turn off, or do we want to switch it up to turn on? Do we want to
uh let
go?
let's get steamy, let's get turned on, guys.
Let's do
All
it.
right.
Yep.
So,
Flip that switch.
Luke, hit us with your turn on. What gets you hot and bothered?
All right. So I think last episode I mentioned this, but I want more games to support couch co-op because as someone who has a partner who plays video games and also plays video games with me together, you realize really quick that the games that you can play that support couch co-op aren't as many as you think there would be, right? A lot of these games nowadays support some sort of cooperative play, but a lot of them are online only. And that's super unfortunate because I know that most people, when they are playing multiplayer games, it is in an online capacity, but um, there's still a lot of people out there that play games together. And while last year was like a year where we couldn't spend time together and all our gaming was done online, there was lots of families stuck at home. And I just wished I could pull a bigger library of games that supported couch co-op. So, yeah, it really bugs me when it is a game, like I said, that has that cooperative play, but it is online only because it's like the infrastructure is there, but it's just not translating into a local experience. And I'm not a game developer. I don't know all the challenges it takes to make something split screen. But that being said, I don't think it's obviously it's been done. You look at Josef Fares, Brothers, A Way Out, and now It Takes Two, games that are designed completely around cooperative play. So yeah, there are people in the industry that are, I think, trying to get the ball rolling back on cooperative couch co-op because yeah, ever since the age of online play and PSN and Xbox Live, I feel like games have really dwindled when it comes to couch co-op. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys ever play couch co-op games with your friends or significant others?
Well, as the world's number one Nintendo stan, I mean, they spit out couch co-op multiplayers all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Now, is that because they realize there's benefits in that, or is it because their online servers are hot dog water? So, I mean, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, like, sitting down with two or three or four friends and just having that split screen experience is completely different than the online voice chat experience.
Couch co-op stuff will usually happen, with me and the kids. Sometimes, and anything that me and Alicia will sit down and play will usually be like a LAN party, so sort of situation. So like Stardew Valley, we sit down, of course, same sofa, sitting and playing the same game, but it was more of a LAN thing than anything. But me and the kids will play Minecraft together. Terraria is another one too. So like a lot of those ones will get some couch co-op going together with each other. Um, but honestly, like nothing to the level that something like GoldenEye brought us back on the N64 or anything like that. I haven't had a couch co-op experience like that for a very long time. It's been a bit for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it kind of died at that generation, right? Xbox, PS2, GameCube. Sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, no, you're good.
But yeah.
So, I mean, Nintendo's really great at it, right? As NeeSean pointed out, they make some great couch co-op games, but then you also look at it and I think they have this thing like, okay, we made this game, how do we fit co-op into this? And sometimes it's just really bad. Like, you have Mario Odyssey and it's like the second player is the cap. It's so bad. It's so bad. Because someone's, flinging the cap around and it's like you're trying to do like the movement tech with it. Like, I need the cap to do this thing, and they're off doing whatever, and it just doesn't work. And then with the Mario 3D World thing, Bowser's Fury, second player gets to be Bowser Jr. It's not very exciting. It's not super helpful. Like, it doesn't feel like a real co-op experience. So I think they need to just stop shoehorning multiplayer in the games that don't need it,
Yeah.
because they have plenty of other games that do have perfectly good couch co-op or online co-op that, like, you don't need it to be in every game. But I mean, the ones where they do it right, I mean, it's great. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, there's just some where it's just like, all right, this didn't really need it, but okay. It's there if you want it.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I'm really hoping. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but the next game that we are looking forward to play couch co-op is hopefully Halo Infinite, and that game traditionally has always had. Actually, I don't know if 5 had a local couch co-op, but all the other games definitely do. And so, yeah, I'm looking. That's like the next game that I'm looking forward to. But it's definitely a difficult thing to find nowadays. So hopefully in the future, we have more games that support it, and like you said, aren't throwing in multiplayer just for the sake of it. If it needs to be a game that supports that kind of experience. So
All right, Steven, what turns you on?
So I think mine is one of those ones that maybe slips under the radar for some folks, and you kind of, whenever it's brought up, you're like, oh yeah, that thing. And it is a game's soundtrack. The orchestration, that down home music that you're listening to throughout your playthrough of the game, not playing, not having Spotify play over or anything like that. That one that you can just sit down and listen to, just its own game music. It is that thing that within a game can really suck me in emotionally to a game. So a really good soundtrack on a video game is going to be one of those big turn-ons for me. If it's got a good soundtrack to it, there's a really good chance that it's going to keep me playing it, because it's gonna make it so immersive whenever it comes to that sort of thing. And by the way, Luke, Final Fantasy 14 has a really great soundtrack,
dang
and
it,
you can couch
I was
co-op.
gonna mute him. I missed it.
But yeah, your music in a game, I think it just adds to it so much more. It gives it that cinematic experience and can really fill out the emotional response that you get from the game itself. It's one of those things that, like I said, I just think it's kind of slept on a little bit as a turn on for a game. And I'll tell you, it gets my blood boiling. I love a good soundtrack.
Yeah, that's a really good call out there. Like, I mean, especially being a big fan of RPGs, like RPG, or yeah, the soundtrack of an RPG is like one of the core elements to those games. And it can be very powerful. It can create like nostalgia. I know in level grinders, when we talk about the games we've been talking about, soundtracks have always been a thing that, we keep coming back to. And yeah, it creates environment, it sets the tone of the game, it can provide emotional responses like you mentioned. Soundtracks are extremely powerful. That is a really great choice there. I dig it. How about you, Nishan? You're up. What gets your beard all tingly?
Oh, lots of things. I think I'm gonna go for the easy choice, the one that a lot of people are probably screaming at us right now, and that's an open world or sandbox type game, a game where they just kind of give you free roam to do whatever you want, whether it's go climbing mountains in Breath of the Wild, or stealing an old lady's Oldsmobile and jumping it off a bridge in Grand Theft Auto, and just gamers just want to have fun and just live out fantasies. And really the like open world games give that to you. And I mean, sometimes it's in like real life settings, again in Grand Theft Auto, where it's like if you want to be a sociopath for a day, you can be a sociopath and you're not going to jail forever. Or in fantasy games, The Witchers. I mean, there's a reason Skyrim, like nobody like Skyrim, everybody just keeps playing it, even though it's what 15 years old at this point. Getting
There's no
it,
end.
it,
There's no end.
and yeah,
No one has ever beat it.
and so I mean, I think that's one we might all agree on is just the if a world is open and just gives you free reins, I think we all enjoy that sandbox feeling.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like if an open world game is done right, it can be a ton of fun. And you know, we're starting to get to a point where it's pretty common in games too. So you got to make it interesting, um, make it fun, make it engaging. But yeah, open worlds can be very immersive. You know, you don't have the loading screens, you don't have you know, in some cases you don't have like any specific direction you need to go to. You just kind of get that freedom, which is really great. So yeah, open worlds, very good choice as long as it's done well. I think yeah, that's a good turn on there. I actually had that on my list as well. So
It's a double-edged sword. You know me.
yeah.
Like I
Mhm.
coined the term Skyrim's because of Skyrim and its open world, where um, I didn't move at all through the plot of the story because the open world of Skyrim itself was more interesting to me than going through the plot. So it's very tricky. But on the other hand, we have a game like Horizon Zero Dawn that's open world, but the plot is like, God, it's so good. Everything's so intertwined with the main plot that the open world barely like. It's great. It's interesting. It's great to be out in, but it also allows me to be like, okay, let me just move through the plot too, because the plot hooked me as much. It's one of those, like you said, Adam. We just got to kind of make sure that it's a good balance of things. Um, but I love open world stuff. I mean, hey, another one of those meme games for me. No Man's Sky is open galaxy, right? It's just got to have a sort of um, constant sort of newness to it each time you go to a different place and keep you sucked into it. I love it. Great choice. Great choice.
Yeah, this one, like I said, it's I have it in my turn on list because open worlds are, you know, for the most part, or at least the ones that I experienced recently have been really good. The Last of Us Part Two had a really nice open world section, and then they gave it to you for a little bit, and then they took it away. Like it didn't show up again in the rest of the game, which was kind of an odd choice. But you know, the part that they did give us that was a little bit more open or a little bit more sandboxy was great. This is a really interesting. It's a really interesting topic because I also have it on my turnoffs list. So there's so I'm just gonna segue right into the next turn round of turnoffs, which for me is open world as well. So it seemed like a good segue for that. And this is kind of the opposite. There's some open worlds that are not fun or they're overcrowded. There's too many things to do. Think Ubisoft games, right? They're
Yeah.
open worlds. There's always way too much on there. You have markers all over the place. It's like, okay, what the hell do I want to like? There's just so much that it sort of creates this feeling of you know, it gives you decision paralysis, right? Kind of think like you log on to Netflix for the first time in a while. It's like, okay, what's there? And you spend more time looking for something to watch than actually watching something. And some open worlds are like that too. And those ones are not fun to be in. So yeah, it's like you said, Steven, it's a double-edged sword. If it's done really well, it's great. If it's done very poorly, it's surely a turn off.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm playing through Assassin's Creed Valhalla right now, and I kind of played that game for about 20 hours, and I had to put it down because it was a situation of bloat, right? Just way too many things to do, way too many points on the map of that you needed to go investigate, and it gets to a point where it's like, man, you're so overwhelmed by like this list of things you need to check off that you kind of just like stop enjoying what you're doing. So for me personally with that, I had to like step away. I came back and I found enjoyment in it for some reason, but uh, I think it was just because the game I opened up new areas, opened up the story a little bit, and so I got back into it. But yeah, like open world games, you definitely hit the nail, Adam, by saying like they're incredible, but they can also be absolutely terrible, and I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, and there's open world fatigue that comes too, right?
Yeah.
Because there's everyone wants to make open world games now, and there's so many out there that it's there's almost too many, and you get to a point where it's like, okay, I've been through so many open world games. I just want something a little bit more linear, a little bit better constructed. Like
Hmm.
I want sort of um like a story experience maybe, and it gets to a point where there's just way too many of these open worlds out there, and it's like, okay, I need something a little bit more fresh to play, so I'm gonna put this one down.
Yeah, I think another thing is like as systems become more powerful and they can, load more terrain, like developers are just like, let's make this an actual open world. Let's make this bigger than New York in terms of actual
Hmm.
square mileage. But I think sometimes like that's just too much. If and like some of the more enjoyable open worlds they're a little more self-contained. Like I know Steven probably would agree with this. The Saints Row games are open world, but the cities in those games are relatively small compared to Grand Theft Auto, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, and like you can still do everything you can in those games, but being in a much smaller arena, like it helps keep you on track a little more and like helps you focus because like you can't explore too much, so you can get back to the plot. Whereas like now it seems like, look at this, our digital map is as big as Switzerland. Go explore it, and it's like
Hmm.
how much can you actually put into that map?
All right, so Luke, do you want to give us one of your turnoffs?
Turn-offs. Oh yeah. So this is one that I'm sure some people are like, but the lore, how do you even know what's going on in the game? I'm like, well, if they put it in a goddamn note that I need to read, then I don't care about it. So my huge turn off with video games is just way too many notes or too many audio tapes. I'm not going to say that I hate them across the board because I do think that in the right context they work, right? They provide a little more story. Maybe if it's an audio log, give you recount of the events in this abandoned building, that you're exploring, what happened before you got here. Sure, that's fine. But it's when there's like an excessive amount and or they start burying the game's story inside of those notes. I don't care if it's like, hey, here's Joe, this is what he was doing when the outbreak happened. That's fine. But when they're saying like very specific details, that's going to suck to me because I usually will not read everything. And as someone who likes story, that's unfortunate, right? If I'm missing out on a key part to the plot or something that can actually, you know, make the plot stand out a little bit more. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of playing audio logs and reading notes because again, it just stops that momentum I have if I'm into some really fun combat and then I have to go and read some notes on my way to the next thing. It's like it doesn't excite me. It's boring. I'm playing a video game. I'm not reading a book, so leave that at home. Um, so yeah, I think that some games like as games have evolved, like the introduction of audio logs and stuff have kind of replaced that. So if you have an audio log developers and you're putting it in the game, please do not make us stand there and wait and listen to it before we move on.
Amen.
Yeah, because it's like I can still listen to it as I progress, as I move along down this hallway or corridor. Like there are some games still to this day, like I feel like I don't know, I can't think of it specifically, but I swear I played a game within the last year that definitely had audio logs that I couldn't keep playing in the background while I played the game. So it's like, well, now it's pointless because I want to move on. I don't want to sit here for 3 minutes listening to this bit of information, and that sucks, and it sucks to the person who put that little story bit in there. I think there's a way of doing that better, and I think that is audio logs that just autoplay and put it in your menu that you can retrieve it later if you really want to do it. So, yeah, just limit the amount of notes and things I need to read.
So let me tell you about a game that did this perfectly. I did
Okay.
it absolutely right, and that's God of War. Right. So you have at one point you gather, I forget, man, I can't remember his name. It's just basically the guy that's a head. He's a talking head, and you carry him around on your belt basically. And when you're in your boat, you're on the lake, which is sort of like the very open area of the game, sort of like sandboxy part. And you're in the lake and you're kind of rowing through. He'll tell you basically stories about Norse mythology and whatnot. And as you're riding, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting, but I don't want to get out of the boat because I want to hear the end of it. And if I get out, he stops talking. And that was kind of frustrating for me because I didn't just want to sit on the shore and wait for him to stop telling the story. Well, here at one point, I think I just got tired of waiting, so I just ended up getting out of the boat. Well, here, when I came back to the boat and got back in, he started telling his story again. And it was kind of like these, okay, as I was saying,
Yeah.
and then he would go on and he would finish it. Like that was awesome. I really like that. So if there could be more things like that, like if you're listening to an audio log, right, and you move forward and then all of a sudden someone else in the game cuts it off and then it's gone, right? Because there are games that have done that. Like someone else starts talking in the world around you, and it cuts off the audio log, it puts it away, it does whatever. If after that person stops talking, the audio log pops back up, and you can finish it from there. Like that's, I think, the way to handle it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then you have things like the Fallout games where like every computer has emails for you to read and like these different messages, and it's like there's so many terminals and there's so many messages. It's like there's just too much at
Yeah.
that point. And then like the Skyrim games, right? There's books lying around everywhere. There's like full stories in these books, and it's like who has time to read all these? Um, so yeah, having things in there, but like being more concise with what you're trying to say, or having more concise stories or information kind of doled out in those, I think would
Hmm.
be much better than the way things are being handled now, which is just dumping so many things in there and missing out on great lore because you're tired of reading them or tired of seeing them.
Absolutely.
Steven, what about you?
I kind of hinted at it when we were talking about Ghost of Tsushima. But game developers, listen, if you're making a game that has choices built into it, the only thing that a shoehorn is good for is putting on my shoes. Leave the shoehorn out of choice-based games. Like, don't make the choice for me. If I'm going into an area as the Ghost of Tsushima and I just want to stand up and post up and be a samurai, let me do that and don't shoehorn it onto me. It kills me, kills the game. Perfect example of one that got this perfectly, where your choices matter, and it's not gonna railroad you into a particular set of whatever events. Is Mass Effect, where it has a plethora of choices for you to be able to make, and each one of those choices has its own consequences, and you're not stuck to a particular path if you make that choice. So Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, they'll have this ability for you to be able to choose your path, and that path is going to have repercussions and consequences to it, but you're not going to be shoehorned all of a sudden just because you're running the main plot. You're not all of a sudden just like this, you know, carbon copy of the next player over. It's your own personality built into this player. So, you know, keep let the choices matter. Don't shoehorn us down a particular path if you're allowing us to make choices in a game, because that's ultimately is kind of the bread and butter for your choice based games. And if they shoehorn it, that turns me off. I don't like it. Just might as well just turn it off at that point.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Like to your point with Ghost of Tsushima, yeah, there's that argument that's like, okay, Jin is a samurai and he's going outside of this honor code to do things, killing people without being seen, doing this stealth thing, and yeah, like if it's part of the story of like, oh well, we wanted the player to start as that, you know, has a, they understand that Jin has this honor and he can't do that. And by the end, they see this like growth, and it's like, okay, that's fine. But like you said, Steven, then don't make me make choices that are pushing me that way. Like just either make it that way and go full tilt, or but if you're giving me the options, then give me the options. Let me play it, because that is you, the developer, saying, hey, we want you to make this your story. We want you to play it the way you want to play it, by giving you the freedom of choice. And so you can't then take that back halfway through and saying, well, this is kind of what we wanted to do, so really we don't care about your choice, and we didn't care about it ever, you know, like it just, I think you, the way you kind of articulated that is really, really perfect.
All right, NeeSean.
Here's one that's probably going to get some hate. First person shooters.
A whole genre. Wow.
The whole genre, yep.
Just toss it. No, that's fine. I'm
That's
go ahead.
you know, mostly like the Call of Duties of the world and the arena battlers are it just kind of where the main focus of the game is competition, and it's like I'm not good at first person shooters anyways, so like, and then getting thrown in with a bunch of, you know, level 50 twice what it twice honored or whatever that system is called in Call of Duty. Prestige, yeah, I've been prestige 14 times, and it's like I'm not having fun here. I'm slow to react, and just yeah, everything combined that we talked about before with like toxic fan bases comes into that. And yeah, so if it's like a first person shooter, it has to be, you know, like go above and beyond for me to give it a chance. Like with Halo, that's probably one of my favorite first person shooters because it has such a rich single player mode, and like a lot of people only buy Halo for the multiplayer. I'm like, nah, I'll leave that to the wayside if I can play the story.
Mm-hmm. That's
fair.
yeah.
You know, first person shooters, it's not for everybody, right? Even I set them down for a long time because it's like, I don't know. It was just a game genre that really didn't stick with me as long as say like an RPG did or something like that. And there are some that have done it right. And BLP Entertainment brings that up as the Metroid Prime series, right? So it's one of those things where like you do and you mentioned Halo too, NeeSean. Halo's another one of those in the same lines as Metroid Prime, where like your single player campaign within the first person shooter mode is not a bad experience. It's just like if you kind of take that online and you're stuck with the 50 level prestiges and the toxic communities and, you know, fast paced gameplay that they've got going on in those things. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I really enjoy first person shooters. I would say they're definitely my favorite, one of my favorite genre, not my favorite. But that being said, like I totally understand where you're coming from. Everything you said, I'm like, yeah, that's valid, and I understand why someone would have that perspective. I've had like a different experience with first person shooters. It's like those were the kind of games that I played and bonded with my friends, and so I hold a lot of memories with FPS games from back in the day. Nintendo 64 with GoldenEye, my PlayStation 2, my Xbox 360, like all those have some great memories in there. So but I will say that it is some, once like Call of Duty came around and once multiplayer really started coming up, that's where the focus went to those games, and that's where what you said, where the competition really comes in, the toxicity in some of those games. And yeah, I think first person shooters, I think they're always going to be kind of living in that multiplayer space now. We're too far along, but we do see some of those that are still trying to give love for a campaign. You know, those new Doom games. Titanfall 2, fantastic single player campaign. So, you know, there's still developers doing that, but to kind of give those people who may want to try out an FPS but don't want to go into that multiplayer, need those quick reflexes. But Yeah, I'm not really surprised by that one because I understand where you're coming from, Nishan.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why there's so many different genres, right? And because there's something for everybody. Shooters are one that like I like, but I'm not super into. Like, it's not my go-to genre. Just like sports and racing games, like there's some fun ones in there, but they're not my go-to genres by any means. But I mean, look at sports games. Like, they're probably the most popular. When you think of like Madden and FIFA and PES and all those different sport, like those are like the top earning games for the companies that make them. So there's clearly an audience, just like there's an audience for platformers, RPGs, whatever you have. So it's nice that there's options out there for different folks. So let's move back to the positives here. Luke, give us one of your turn-ons.
All right, everyone, get those resident sleeper emotes because one of my biggest turn-ons is walking simulators. So I'm actually a huge sucker for walking simulators. That's kind of the name that these first-person games have been given for games that are generally played from a first-person perspective, not always, and they're kind of just like a narrative experience, right? There's a lot of debate over, you know, it's obviously a video game, but a lot of people don't see these types of games as video games because it's kind of like a interactable movie, right? You're going along in this story, you're kind of interacting with objects. Most of the time, there's no NPCs. It's kind of just the environment and objects around you that kind of tell the story. And that is why I like it for those reasons, is environmental storytelling. Because you can put a game in with like your top best voice actors, and put in some really good gameplay. But if it doesn't have that storytelling element to it, or if they're really not nailing that storytelling element to it, the player's gonna eventually get burned out and bored, right? Unless that's what they're looking for, is just a gameplay loop. If you're looking for a story, there can be so much done more than just, like I said, dialogue, expensive voice actors acting out a scene. Give me a game that can tell a story, tell me about characters without actually telling me. You know what I mean? Going into an environment that says what happened in this space previously, just by me looking at the objects around it, maybe reading a couple notes to kind of describe some things. What Remains of Edith Finch is a fantastic game.
Amazing.
Fantastic game. And it probably, in my eyes, one of the best of these walking simulators that
100%.
it takes you into different spaces that all they're doing is environmental storytelling, is telling you these stories through over voice narration, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, are they a little boring compared to something like Final Fantasy 14? They don't got that action. Definitely. If you're looking for that, I can understand why that's not going to be an experience that you're going to enjoy. But if you're looking for something that's just like, you want something less passive than a movie, but maybe you're having some snacks and you don't want to get your controller as dirty, a walking simulator is a perfect opportunity. So you can play a game, you can make choices, see a story untold while kind of being a part of it. And yeah, I find those very therapeutic, and some of my favorite games of all time on my top 20, top 10 list are walking simulators. And that just goes to show what I prioritize in my gaming. So, What Remains of Edith Finch is definitely one of my favorites. That's going to be really the one I'll recommend to the audience here, is go play that game if you haven't. Adam, you've played it. You can vouch that it's a really fantastic game. And then another one I recommend is Gone Home. Another short little experience. I think it's only about an hour, 2 hours. And that's the other great thing about walking sims, is generally they're only a handful of hours. So you can get in, get out, have a great story, and then move on to the next thing. So that is one of my gaming turn-ons.
If there was only 2 games out of like the whole walking sim category that I would recommend, number 1, What Remains of Edith Finch. Number 2, Deliver Us the Moon. Um, just if you're not into walking sims, play these 2 games. They are both amazing, 100% worth your time. They're short. Like worst case scenario, you're looking at probably 2 sittings for both of those games. So, yeah. What Remains of Edith Finch, Deliver Us the Moon. Go check them out.
And
I think Deliver Us the Moon, if it hasn't already, I think it's being removed from Game Pass. So if you haven't already, looking at you, Steven, go play it. All
I
right.
think I think before we hop off, I think walking sims are really like the horror genre is really good with walking sims as well. Um, Layers of Fear, pretty much a walking sim,
yeah.
and that one's creepy as hell. I think the same studio had their hands in the most recent Blair Witch game.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
pretty walking sim, and I mean we PT the playable
Hmm.
team that I mean it would have expanded if it actually turned into Silent Hill, but that little game itself is a walking sim, and that's a lot of people's like scariest video game experience. So
Terrifying.
if you don't like walking sims but you like horror games, I think if you like those two genres work really well together.
Yeah.
And if you want to play a walking sim horror game with friends, Phasmophobia.
There you go.
Just shoehorn in that game in there because I love it. All right, Steven, give us a turn on.
Oh, turn on. I didn't have another one.
Was it harder for you guys to find turn ons and turn offs?
It was kind of equal
Because
for me trying to
okay.
find. I knew the easy one, which was community. Toxic community is a big turn
Yeah.
off. And then the shoehorn was very easy, and music is a really good turn on for me. Because it's hard for me to put to words. I mentioned before, like whenever I go to get a game, it's sort of a gut reaction on I'm going to enjoy this or I'm not going to enjoy it sort of thing. So it's tough for me to kind of quantize that down to what it is exactly that gets me roped into it. All right. Actually, I just thought of something right now. And it's mostly because I'm considering having played Outriders recently, Mass Effect on the horizon right now for me. Tech trees. Really, really good tech trees, your skill trees, right? Another one that had, and any way that you develop your character within a game, mostly in that RPG or action RPG sense, or your action adventure games, they always have a tech tree to build your character out and stuff like that. And the really good ones are always memorable. So like your sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, Outriders tech tree that they have, where they're basically set. You have 3 different paths, very easy to manage and get through. You have the ability to reset it and go back if you want to. You also have Mass Effect that I mentioned, and its tech tree and how simple it is to use that one through whatever class you end up going through. A really good tech tree, I think, is something that really just kind of like you get into it and you just want to read through all the skills and plan your path out, even though you barely ever manage to stay on that path as you level up and use the skill points. But I think that's one thing within a game that can really kind of solidify the whole experience up for you, is being able to divvy out your points as needed and have really nice abilities or boosts that come along from doing that. So I think that's going to be where I go with that one. And one that comes to mind that was kind of bad, and it's mentioned in chat too, is Clodo brings up Skyrim's skills. I always got lost. I know it's kind of simple as one, but it was another one of those things in Skyrim that I just kind of got lost in, where it was like, okay, what do I put points into? What's really going to be useful throughout my experience as I go into these things? And that was one that was kind of tough to figure out for myself. Again, Skyrim, great game, beautiful game, huge in my eyes whenever it came to anything. But yeah, like a good memorable tech tree, just being able to develop your character the way that you want to and giving you lots of options to be able to do it, but also keeping it simple enough that it's like let me kind of float through this thing a little bit.
So let me kind of piggyback off of yours there and kind of give you my next one because it's kind of the same thing, sort of, and that's menuing, which goes a lot of times hand in hand with RPGs. But I love spending time in menus. It sounds boring and ridiculous, but when you have a game that does it right, it can be so much fun. Like you mentioned, Final Fantasy X, like you build up a couple levels in that your sphere levels, and then you can just spend so much time in there looking at okay, which direction do I want to go? Which abilities do I want to get now? And then you have what like 7 or 8 different characters that you can do this with, and you can do it like all in one sitting. So you can spend all this time menuing. As much as I kind of mentioned, like not I know a lot of people love Final Fantasy IX. I'm not real huge on that game, but it does have some great menuing in it with the equipment and the way you learn abilities and things like that, and kind of looking through and sorting out what equipment you want to put your people on because that's what's going to let you learn certain abilities, things of that nature. Final Fantasy VII Remake did a great job recently. You have your characters with all these different weapons that you can get, and each weapon is upgradable in the menus. It's kind of like its own little mini sphere grid system, which was really great to dabble with and play around with that. I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out how I wanted to build out each person's weapon. Um, and then, of course, you get into the materia system too. So you can sort of customize your loadouts for each character based on what materia you give them, whether it be active abilities like magic or passive things like stat boosts or, um, you know, counterattacks, things of that nature. So you can not only customize your weapons, but you can customize your characters. And it just adds a lot of menuing in there. Monster Sanctuary was another one I was really high on when it came in terms of menuing because you can spend a lot of time, again, just customizing each of your monsters, you know, with gear, which is something you can't really do in say like a Pokemon, where it's just they level up, they learn abilities from time to time. You can teach them certain abilities. This was like you can teach them abilities, you can use skill points. Got great trees in there for your skill trees. There's multiple skill trees for each monster. You're equipping items on them. It was just it was a menuer's dream. Monster Sanctuary. It's so good. But yeah, so I figured those two kind of went hand in hand. I figured I'd bring that up now while we were talking about it. So that was my next turn on. So
And that's that on the flip, that those are probably like some of my turnoffs
Yeah, me too.
because that
yeah.
those are one of the things that make RPGs inaccessible to me is just paralysis by choice. It's like there's so many options and so many branching techniques you can turn in. It's just like I, I just want to press A and punch a bad guy. All right, that's there. Anything more than that is just gravy, like extra gravy. I don't need that. But yeah. So I think that's for me. That's the big thing in my way for getting into RPGs and like obviously I think that's a big thing you have to enjoy that genre.
Cool. Yeah, it's not for everybody, kind of like what we mentioned earlier, different genres and things and RPGs menuing oftentimes does come hand in hand with them. NeeSean, I know you're big into Pokemon, which I'm sure is great. You don't have to do a ton of menuing with Pokemon games, which can be pretty nice. Not to say that there's no menuing involved, but it's definitely not as involved as
It's
some other
it's
RPGs.
it's you give a Pokemon an item and it's
Yeah,
just an item and that's it.
basically. Yeah,
You're not you can go a little bit deeper with breeding for the different IVs and what
sure.
stats you want boosted, but I mean for the casual player, that doesn't really matter.
Yep. Yep. Now we know that's a turn off for you. Give us another turn on.
I was gonna say one, but I want to shout out Chloe in chat, and she brought up a great one, and that is a good character customization.
Yeah, that was a great one.
And and that's one you don't really think about, but like if a game gives you that option, ooh boy, that because you can make them like look exactly like you can make them look like the stereotypical hero, or you could just make them look as ridiculous as possible and like set their eyebrows to 100 and set their eye depth to negative 100 and You know, give them the purple hair and the flat butt, but the quadruple G bosom, and like just make them look as ridiculous as possible. And I think like being able to make your avatar look as cool or as ridiculous as possible is a good one. I mentioned this game before, and Saints Row has a really good um, character customization, and you can make them look absolutely ridiculous. And then when they get loaded into the 3D cutscenes, you've got these regular looking people, and then you've got your 7 foot tall, 600 pound purple skin monster, and like nothing's better than that.
Let me give a shout out to the best character creator of all, Nintendo Mii's. And it's a joke, but at the same time, like if you've seen some of the creations that people come up with, where it's the most basic character creation you can think of, but the way that people take these basic tools and make something incredibly creative is amazing. Like if you would just pop into like Miiverse or whatever, or there, I think even before that existed, I don't know, people were posting things online, the creations that they would make that would just be absolutely amazing. I'm like, how in the hell did they do that? Like it didn't make any sense. I'm like, the tools don't exist to do this, but yet they made it work and they made it look great. Very impressed by some of the creations that people were able to make out of the Mii creators. So yeah, I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, I want to shout out a couple character creators that also popped into my head were the WWE games, like W2K
Yes.
games,
Oh my God.
have some
Yes.
pretty hilarious character creations.
Yes.
Yeah, like just go on YouTube and like search like any IP, and someone's probably created a character from that IP in uh in W2K, and it is hilarious. And another game that I remember was doing that when it released was it Soul Calibur 6? Is that the most recent one? Yeah, another really robust character creator where people could rearrange things to make characters. Like you could make Samus fighting Kratos or something like that, and just get like pretty close to real 3D models. So Adam in chat's here saying, ask Adam about Officer Grumbles. So now it's out there. Well, who's this Officer Grumbles?
Man, we played, what was it? It was a WWE game. I can't remember what it was, but
I think it was on the 360, right?
It was,
360
yeah.
WWE game.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was on 360. And the home that we lived in at the time, it was a 3-bedroom apartment, but we had like 6 dudes living in there at the same time. And we were all just entranced by this wrestling game because one of the guys that lived with us, just massive wrestling fan. He kind of got us dragged into it. We had a lot of fun. It was, a point in time where we actually followed wrestling and the storylines that were going on.
Right.
But we were playing the game too, and we were all making characters. And Steven, I don't remember. Yeah, SmackDown versus Raw. Was it your character? Or was it my character? I don't remember who made Officer Grumbles.
It was yours. Officer Grumbles
mine?
was yours. Yeah,
Okay.
because mine was Lordly King S. Like I was Lordly King S. everywhere.
Damn.
So I had the King Jerry the King Lawler's entrance, and I had the crown whenever I came out. I had all that stuff on
Nice.
mine. But Palooza had Officer Grumbles, and then there was another one too. Is it like Party Guy or something like that?
Party Guy or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag
And,
cool, dude.
It was so good. There's some really great
Yeah.
characters that we came up with in that.
And we would get we would make the most ridiculous like entrances that we could get out of them. Yeah, I wish I could remember a little bit more about those 2 characters, but yeah, I think Party Boy, he was kind of like based off of Party Boy from Jackass.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the idea for that. But Officer Grumbles, I'm trying to remember, there was something about it that was just absolutely hysterical. I don't know. I mean, the name itself was fun, but yeah, it was a trip. That was a fun game. So I mean, I guess at this point, if you guys want, we'll just take a little bit more time. If anyone just wants to throw out any more turnoffs that y'all have? So I have a couple more I could list off here that I found or thought of.
Yeah, I'll just go rapid fire with some of mine. There was only a couple. Oh, the we talked about stealth earlier, and a little bit about his like stealth only missions when they throw in like you can do whatever you want, but this one mission you gotta do stealth. Not a fan of that. And then my last one here for turnoffs is introducing a new combat mechanic near or at the final boss. So there's nothing more annoying of like learning all these combat systems over several hours, getting to the final moment in a game, the moment where you're supposed to take everything you learned and apply it to defeat this one boss so you can complete the game, and then it's like actually screw all that, you got to do it this way. It's like there's so many games that do that, and it's like why do you do this? So that's that's a big turn off for me.
All right. Yep. I've got two here that sort of go hand in hand, but not necessarily in all cases. And that's long tutorials and
Yeah.
bad pacing. Um, you know, pacing in a game is very crucial. And if you get to a point where, things are just where it's just not balanced in the things that you do. And I guess maybe I could give an example of a game that does it right is the Persona series, because just when you get tired of one of the elements of the game, it gives you something different. So like the one thing about Persona games, obviously it's a JRPG, but it's also very like social, like, you develop social interactions with the other characters in the game. And and it's sort of slice of life a little bit in a sense. So it puts you in long stretches of time where it's like, okay, either you're dungeon crawling for a long period of time, or you're doing these social things for a long period of time. And it's like just when you're at the point where it's like, okay, I've really had enough of this, boom, you're in a dungeon, you're doing the combat stuff. And then it's like, okay, like I'm getting a little, tired of this dungeon here. I'm ready to go back. And then it's like, okay, here you are. Like, here's your social stuff. And the pacing between those two and the way that it's balanced is done just so well. But there are games out there that don't do it well. They have these extremely long tutorials. What is it? Twilight Princess is one that comes to mind. One of the worst cases of tutorial syndrome that exists in gaming. And I think Skyward Sword is. I never played Skyward Sword, but I think it kind of is the same in the sense that it's just really long, terrible, hand-holdy tutorials at the beginning of the game. Those are two things I think kind of go hand in hand. The last thing I want to mention for turnoffs is enemy level scaling. So in RPGs, right, I like to level grind to give myself an edge in games. But when you have games where I spend all this time level grinding just for the enemies to be at the same level as me, it's like, what's the point? Like, I'm getting stronger, but so are the enemies. Like, now all that's happening is just the numbers are getting bigger. That's literally the only thing that happens. It makes the entire leveling process feel completely moot, and it drives me nuts. If you want to add that in as like a challenge option, make it an option. Don't make it part of the game. Don't make it mandatory. It drives me nuts. I can't stand it. A game that did scaling really, really well was Monster Sanctuary. I brought this up a little bit earlier. Great game. If you haven't played it, Monster Sanctuary is an awesome game. It's an indie game. A couple episodes back, a couple months ago, I actually did an interview with the developer of that game. It was an awesome episode. Please go back and listen to that. It was a lot of fun. He was a great guest. I can't say enough how much I love Monster Sanctuary, but they did it in a way that the level scaling exists in that game, but it's based on your overall exploration. So it's like Pokemon meets Metroidvania. So if you think about the map of a Metroidvania and the way you explore, and you get abilities to explore different areas, like something you couldn't get to before, now you can because you have this traversal ability. But the game, the scaling is based on map completion. So when you get to a new area, the level of those enemies is going to be based on how much map you've uncovered. So it gives you a little bit of freedom in the way you explore. Things are a little bit more open than traditional RPGs or Metroidvanias. The way you go to tackle it. So in one playthrough, I could go one direction and the enemies are going to be a little bit weaker because I'm early on. Or in another playthrough, maybe I go the other direction and I come back to that place later on and the enemies are going to be stronger than what I came to them before in the original playthrough. So I think that's really well done. Most games aren't like that. Most of them will just scale the enemies based on your level, and it drives me crazy. So
No, that's totally a valid one. One I totally forgot of, but I'm totally there with you.
We got a couple from chat. Vincent McHale, unmanageable cameras. Tell me about it.
Ooh,
God, when you
that's a
can't
good
move
one,
it to
yeah.
the way that you want it to. Oh my gosh. Chloe brings up a good crafting system. Amen. A good crafting system
I'm
is
guessing
like,
that's for a turn on.
yeah, that'd be my guess too.
These good crafting systems, I just hate them.
Curse them.
Just no
God
good.
damn it,
They're no good.
developer.
How
This
dare they be
crafting
so
system's
efficient?
too good. Unplayable. KneeSean, do you have any other turnoffs?
I didn't have too many turnoffs. Those were hard for me. But
Okay.
the last one I didn't mention, and is like a flip to one of my turn-ons, is so a turn-off is a game that prioritizes graphics over their gameplay. And I mean, there's no specific game. It's usually right around when a next-gen console comes out is when like, and developers don't know how to use the system, but they're just like, I can do all this stuff. I think a good example might be Cyberpunk. Is they went for this, look how expansive our game is, look how much we can put in here, and they released a broken game because they were more worried about it looking amazing than playing. And then some games are just like, if you play it on PC, it's like, oh, we're gonna melt your graphics card. That's how like intense our graphics are. It's like, uh, I mean, cool, but what's the point of melting my graphics card if I can't play the game? If it's like, if it's boring or not fun, like it looks great, but I mean, I'm not going to spend more than 30 minutes in here looking at a beautifully rendered mountain if it's like boring.
That's fair. All right. Anyone got any additional turn-ons they wanna mention?
Nope.
All right. I'll just go through for me, like just kind of going back to how KneeSean doesn't like shooters. Just want to shout out genres like RPGs. Obviously, I like roguelike games. I love me some roguelikes. And then monster training games. Again, Monster Sanctuary, fantastic game. And then Pokemon games, and even to an extent, Persona games are kind of like monster training games. Or I guess the Shin Megami Tensei series is essentially like monster training. So, yeah, those are all genres I think are really great. So I just wanted to, and anytime I see one of those, I'm instantly like, oh, okay, I'm interested. And maybe it's not a game I'll get, but it at least piques my interest enough to make me want to take a look, watch trailers, watch gameplay, whatever. Sometimes they look great and I get them, like Loop Hero, and then other times, maybe not so interested, and I just kind of leave them be. All right. So Luke, I'm gonna toss it back over to you to start doing the wrap up then.
All right.
If we don't have anything else to add to the turn-ons or turn-offs.
No. One thing I will add, turn on. You got like a dope ass synthwave aesthetic. I'm automatically interested. So just throw that in a
Nice.
game and I'll check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. So yeah, let's wrap up, or gear towards wrapping up the show with just catching you up on what we've been playing recently. So I'm going to turn it over to Steven first, because Steven, you weren't here last week, and I want to know what you've been playing recently.
Not much new. I do my usual Final Fantasy 14 thing. I have found out, of all the content that I've done so far in Final Fantasy 14, I finally found one that has cursed me. And that's the most recent Diamond Weapon Extreme Trial. I am cursed. I am absolutely cursed in this. I've cleared multiple things multiple times, but this fight for some reason just is absolutely destroying me. And as Chloe mentions, because she's been in the parties with me, it just brings a shudder to my spine. I don't know how to break the curse. I don't know if it'll ever be broken, but that one right now is giving me a lot of heck. It's really hecking me. And then No Man's Sky Expeditions, I'm kind of putting the bow on that. I've got 3 more tasks to complete. They're kind of grindy, so it's going to be probably another like week or two before I complete that and see what the ultimate grand prize is going to be. But I'm pretty excited about that. But other than that, I've honestly been watching more stuff at this point than I've been gaming, because I canceled Paramount Plus and picked up HBO Max. So I've been messing around with that app and getting caught up on things that people have watched, a month or two ago. I'm finally getting into it and watching more than playing, I guess you could say, a little bit.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Anything specifically you've been watching you want to shout out real quick?
Oh, how about that Snyder's cut of the Justice League? Like, absolute masterpiece of a movie, and WB should be ashamed of themselves for what they put out in theaters. It is a night and day difference, the two movies, the theatrical versus the Snyder cut. And if we would have been given Snyder cut in the first place, we'd be having a way different conversation about the DC universe than what we're having right now. So shame on you, WB, and well done, Zack Snyder, on that masterpiece of a movie that you brought out. Doctor Who's on there, so I've started doing that. And then today, at time of recording, I watched Godzilla versus Kong, and that movie was everything I expected to be, with
So good.
nice little surprises that were added. And the one really cool thing, and they kind of kick off the whole movie with it, is they're leaning hard into the Hollow Earth theory or hypothesis, which is like one of my all-time favorite conspiracy theories that's out there. If you haven't gotten a chance to look into it, it's wild and it's amazing, and there's some great stories behind it. And Godzilla versus Kong leans into it for kind of their background on where these titans come from, and it's fantastic. But it was a ton of fun. I was rooting for Kong the whole way through it, and he did not disappoint. Very smart boy. And was very happy with his portrayal. I would have liked to see him win a little bit more in the rounds with Godzilla, but I understand Godzilla's the crowd favorite, so they had to appease the masses a little bit. But fantastic movie.
Godzilla's
well,
king of monsters. That's just
King
that's
Kong's
just
King
facts.
Kong. He's a smart
Facts.
boy. Smart boy.
Give me Zilla all day, every day. Zilla, baby. Godzilla gang, rise up. That can shoot freaking laser beams from his mouth. Godzilla gang.
Kong has opposable thumbs, though. So.
Exactly. I mean, he walks
Godzilla might.
upright,
Godzilla
opposable
might.
thumbs.
We don't know.
Speaks in sign language. Smart boy.
Right, how about you, Adam?
So yeah, I've been playing more Final Fantasy 14. It kind of got its hooks back in me, which I'm actually quite pleased with. I've been doing more than just MSQ, like the main story quest line now, which I've found very enjoyable. I mean, the main story quest line was really great. The new dungeon was really great, but I've been getting into some additional content. I finally picked up, a non-combat class in Fisher, which has been pretty fun. So the fishing's been a good time. I unlocked Blue Mage, which I had avoided because it's not a party viable class. Like you literally can't get into parties with it. It's because it's, I guess, sort of broken. So you can't take it into parties.
It's just extra content, really.
Yeah, it's just extra content, but I've had a lot of fun with that. Just going around collecting all the enemy spells that you can get. I have a pretty good lineup now, but my blue magic spell book is still pretty empty. So I'm looking forward to collecting more of that. Which the community's been really helpful in pointing me in the right direction of which spells I want to prioritize. Vincent and Agu, they helped me sort of power level my blue mage to get it to to get it to the highest level you can get, which is now making it possible to go get these spells a little bit easier now. Some really cool ones out there. Blue mage is great. I wish it could be used in a party. They could just figure out a way to balance it and make it party viable would be so good. And that's pretty much it. I will say, as far as like Steven mentioned, watching more than playing, I think that's pretty accurate for me as well at the moment, just because there's a little bit of drought in gaming. And but that's about to change next week. We're getting Pokemon Snap, we're getting Returnal, and I really, really want to mention how excited I am for Returnal. I think some streamers have a preview of the game that they're able to do. They're only allowed to play for 40 to 45 minutes, but in the amount of time that I caught of it, oh my gosh, I am so
Dude,
excited
it
for
looks
this game. That
so good.
it takes the like roguelike elements that I'm really into, and it takes it goes like in this weird like this like sci-fi sort of environment aesthetic that they have with it, the lore. It's basically like a triple A roguelike game, which it just looks so good. I can't wait for it. I'm so excited.
Definitely. Yeah, if you haven't, if you're kind of been on the fence with Returnal and you're okay with kind of like seeing more about the game to for it to sell it to you, but I would definitely recommend checking out the preview coverage because I kind of went on like a media blackout on Returnal of just not really looking at anything if I could avoid it, and these previews popped. And I was like, man, I kind of think the game like is gonna be my cup of tea. I think I'll just go for it. But I'm like, you know what? Let's watch these coverage anyways. And watching some of the gameplay sequences and um, some of these bullet hell scenarios of adding in platforming to try and avoid projectiles and everything like that, while you're also like, it just looks like it is triple A gameplay experience. So with that, like you said, that sci-fi kind of story. So man, I'm so excited for next week, I guess, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yep. Day one for me for sure. Yeah, it was kind of like the same as you. I had no real interest in watching the preview coverage for it, but I was watching a streamer, and it's just a streamer that I enjoy watching, and then he just sort of transitioned into it, and then it was just there, and then I'm like, oh, and then it just, as he kept playing, I just got more interested and interested, and it's like I'm like, must look away, don't want to spoil, but there really was no spoilers in there, and it looks so good. It's gonna be a great game.
Definitely. All right. How about you, Nishan?
Um, I dipped my toes into a couple demos of games
Nice.
this week. Wasn't sure I wanted to get them, but they looked interesting. Um, the first one is Sea of Solitude. It came out on like most systems in 2019, but just came over to Switch recently. And you play like this little monster girl who wakes up stranded in the middle of the ocean, and eventually she finds like a flooded city, and she has to make her way through the city while avoiding these giant sea creatures. And it was pretty fun. I like the mechanics of the game. It seems like one of those. It's an indie-ish game, so the story's going to be a little bit more depressing than lighthearted. It looks like as we go forward, but it looks great, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to drop the. I think it's like $19, 19.99 to get the full game. So Sea of Solitude, and then we were talking about this game last week, Chris Tales, the
Mm.
that that time-based RPG from the indie showcase. Downloaded that today and played through the demo, and uh,
Pretty
guys,
good, right?
I like this RPG. I
Yeah.
like it. It's
Yeah, it's decent.
the animation style on it is amazing. It reminds me of the show Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. It's kind of like abstract-ish and kind of layered a little bit. The character designs are pretty cool. The time-based mechanics that they introduced in the demo is really cool. You play this girl, Chris Bell. I want to remember her name, and she discovers like time powers, and she can see into the past, into the future, and into the present all at once. And then you make decisions based on like what the future or the past looks like. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. Doesn't come out till July, so I'm wondering how much they're going to change in that time span. But yeah, this is one I'm excited for. This might be a day one download for me.
Yeah, it's really
Nice.
Yeah.
cool. I played that demo on Steam sometime last year. I think it was around like the Summer Games Fest thing,
Mhm.
whatever was going on. There was a bunch of demos that went up, and I tried that one, and I really liked it. Now having having that simultaneous view of past, present, and future all on screen all the time was a little disorienting at times, but it's a pretty cool feature that they have in there. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely one that's on my radar.
and I went back and watched the trailer for it after playing, and it looks like from the trailer, it looks like that's not going to be consistent on the screen. It looks like it was just kind of to show it off for the demo, but the trailer, when it showed like later in game, it didn't look like that past, present, future was on there all the time. So it might just be an ability you unlock at certain points. But again, it's what, 3 months away at this point. How far is July? I can't count.
A month or 2 months, essentially, I guess.
July?
July, yeah,
Yeah,
May,
Are you,
June.
are you thinking June? So what
I
we're
We're almost
think
at
it's
the. We're almost
so
into
we still
May.
have we still have to get through May, June, and then yeah, I guess depending
Month.
on when it comes out in July, whether
Yeah.
it's beginning or end, I suppose.
but yeah, and then just my regular playthroughs of Breath of the Wild on stream and doing some Pokemon Sword. So just the old familiars for me.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I don't really have too much new to report from last week. I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm at like power level 210. So I've like just put in work. I'm almost at 100 hours, I think. And then I also have been playing a little bit more of It Takes Two with Meg. And last time I talked about this game, we had just kind of completed one kind of world. And now we are into, I think, two, maybe three worlds from that now. So we're like fourth world. Not really sure how long the game is, but I feel like we barely scratched the surface um, compared to like what I've seen in the trailers. Like there's so much more and to see, and I'm like I've already seen so much. But um, if anyone is like thinking about this game, if it goes on sale, if that's what you're waiting for, like scoop it up when it goes on sale. I definitely think it's worth the cost that it's at now because it is a reduced price. It's not a full $60 game. I think for you Americans, it's like 45
Yeah,
bucks or 40
$40,
bucks or
I
something
think.
like that. Yeah, so it's a little bit on the budget side, and it's still this really incredible experience. And again, don't have anyone to play with you, or you don't have someone that has the game. It gives you a free copy of the game to give to your friend. So you just need your friend to commit to playing video games with you, and you're ready to go. So this game is really fun. I was blown away. I don't want to like talk about it too much because I'm gonna try and convince Megan to do a review episode with me because this game, I'm saying it right now, is going to be in Game of the Year talks by the end of the year for sure. I don't
Wow.
I don't think it will get any sort of like it will get awards for maybe like a multiplayer experience, but that's exactly why it's not gonna like sweep the awards or anything is because I think there is still a little bit of a barrier to entry to those people that really just like to play games by themselves and no one else. But yeah, like if any of y'all are slightly interested, just go for it because I guarantee it's gonna be a good time. So and then I also picked up Golf Story, a game that
Yes.
yeah, a
Love that
game.
game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've heard you talk about it before on the show. I have also heard lots of great things about it, and I was like, you know what? Now's the time. We got Sports Story coming out some point, and I need to play this game because I was kind of like. I've been also playing a lot of Stardew lately, and I was kind of just looking for like a little 16-bit kind of pixel game with some RPG elements, and I'm like, you know what? This game looks perfect, and I haven't done a lot in it. I've only played about an hour and I've done mostly just talking with people and that's exactly what I wanted, right? Like the golf stuff and the golf mechanic of it is fine, but like it's really fun kind of seeing these different characters that are part of the golf course you're at and stuff. And I'm interested in seeing where it goes. And I'm really interested in seeing where Sports Story will go because if they're taking that same RPG element of the game into Sports Story, while also giving you just more selections of sports to play. I mean, that sounds like a slam dunk to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hopefully gonna see it to the end. I picked it up on Switch, so it's a great game that I can play, in the evenings or in bed or something like that. So
Yeah, you're making me want to do a second playthrough because I never actually finished the game. I got very close to the end, and then I don't know. I think I started playing. I might have got distracted by Stardew actually, and I put it down before I finished it. And now I'm thinking like, well, maybe I should go back and just start from the beginning. So I you know repick up all the story beats because I do remember it being like a very fun story. There's some good humor in it, and so I kind of want to give it a another playthrough, finish it up before Sports Story comes out. Yeah, it was really fun.
definitely.
Glad you picked that up.
Yeah, and I think I used like some, what do you call those things? Like gold coins or something on the eShop,
Hmm.
Nintendo points or something like that. And so it's free because I had like I
Nice.
have a
That's
bunch
awesome.
bank. So I'm like, sure, let's get this game. All right. Now let's wrap up the show with our last segment, which is question of the week. So it worked out because we actually posed a question that relates to the episode that we just did. So we asked you guys, what are your gaming turn on and turn offs? Of course, Twitch chat, as we're live recording this, has been throwing out some great recommendations. Thank you to everyone who's been doing that. But yeah, we wanted to know from you guys. So we had a couple people write in. And the first is Maryland Gamer says, I'd say the biggest turn on would be a free world where I can do whatever I want. Um, while the biggest no go is a game where you do the same kinds of things for the whole game in repeat. Looking at you, Assassin's Creed. So fair criticism. Oh, Assassin's Creed 1. Sorry, correction. Um, all right. Thank you, Marilyn, for submitting that question or response to the question. And then next we have BLP Entertainment. I think the biggest thing for me is allowing me to play. I like to experiment with what I can do to solve puzzles. Breath of the Wild did this in spades from combat to puzzle solving. It doesn't have a defined one way to solve a challenge. As for turn-offs, the biggest one is explaining too much. If gameplay is constantly being stopped to explain a mechanic or objective, I immediately start glazing over. I lose interest when exposition is spoon-fed to us rather than a steady drip through gameplay. Give me some information while I explore. Don't stop me every 5 minutes for an explanation of the history of the world I'm trying to explore. Tell it to me in more creative ways. Just a fantastic, well detailed response, BLP. So thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I just want to talk about the Breath of the Wild point real quick. Uh, I definitely, anytime there was one of those motion controlled little labyrinth puzzles with the ball, I would just try to like fling my Switch around to just get the ball to land and hopefully fling like, because it's just like,
Turns out
oh,
that's a viable strategy.
and
It
yeah, it
works.
turns out it works. So that's exactly it. Given many ways to come up with a solution, even if it wasn't the intended way from the developer. So thank you, Marilyn and BLP, for submitting your responses to question of the week. Now, if
We
you're
did, of
listening,
course, have many responses in chat
of
during this
course,
too.
yeah,
So we were kind of doing question of the week throughout the show.
exactly,
So
yeah,
thank you for the participation, everybody.
absolutely. So what we wanted to ask you this week is, it's actually coming from the question man himself, KneeSean, who handles all our questions of the week. Of course, if you want to participate, you can head over to our Discord, invite.gg/gamesarefun. KneeSean posts the question there every single week. You can respond, and then we will read your responses out on the next week's episode. So the new question that KneeSean's going to ask you on the Discord server is, what video game franchise would you like to see get the movie treatment? So everyone knows video game movies are notoriously bad, but when we look at video game movies, there's some pretty stellar IPs that, you know, production companies have taken a shot at trying to adapt into a screenplay and something people watch as opposed to play. So what franchise or maybe a specific game would you like to see be turned into a movie, whether it is a Hollywood blockbuster film or maybe even like a Netflix series or a limited series run or an anime? You know, get creative with your responses, but send them in to invite.gg/games-are-fun on the question of the week channel, and we'll read them next week. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for episode number 122 of the Games Are Fun podcast. KneeSean, where can people keep up with what you're doing?
People can find me at twitch.tv/KneeSean. I'm trying to stream 5 days a week now that I'm a little slower at work. Usually a lot of Nintendo content. If you just want to, come hang out, pretty inclusive community I have over there. And you can follow me on Twitter at @knee__Sean.
Perfect. KneeSean, thank you again for coming on the episode this week. It's been great to have you back to back. And Lordly, if you're in the Twitch chat, he threw KneeSean's Twitch channel in the chat there. So go give KneeSean some love. Go follow him, twitch.tv/KneeSean. He deserves the support over there. So thanks again, KneeSean. It's been great to have you on the episode here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Adam, how about you? Where can people keep up with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at AdamPalooza85. Again, just to kind of, I guess, re-mention it from the top of the show, this Sunday at about 1:30 p.m. Eastern, I'll be doing a stream where I compare this weird candy known as wine gums against gummy bears and juji fruits and jelly beans and such. And then we're going to take that lighthearted, fun candy comparison into the deep, dark world of Bloodborne for a new, fresh playthrough of that. So yeah, that should be interesting.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. It's like Halloween this Sunday. I love it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you, Steven?
As always, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram at Lordly King S. Stream Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time till about 1 p.m. And then sometimes I tweet things. I don't know about social media, though. I think I need a manager. I don't. What do you tweet? What do you even tweet
It's
about?
tough.
That's what I'm
I
trying
don't-
to.
It is, yeah. Yep. Some
so
people are
tough.
so creative. Like I look at this and I'm like, I see these tweets. And I'm like, man, these people are so like, they're so social media conscious. Like they know what stuff is gonna hit. Like they just hit the right notes. I'm like, this is brilliant. Like why can't I be this this witty on social media?
Right, like what was my last tweet wasn't even that great. I was like, oh, since I beat all this stuff from 5.5, we're just gonna farm mounts now, guys. It's just like, what do I even talk about? I have no idea, but I tweet sometimes.
Well, there you
Sometimes.
Go check out Steven sometimes tweets over on Twitter. All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Luke Allen Arm, as well as Instagram at Luke Allen Arm, and then twitch.tv/Luke the Llama. We're going to be streaming probably tomorrow night, going to finish off Undertale, and which is a lot of fun. I got to say, it's been good. Weird game, though. Man, is it a weird game. Like, there's moments where I'm laughing because it's written so well, and then there's other times where I'm like, what? Why is this conversation with this person important? But yeah, fun game. Of course, follow the show on Twitter at GamesAreFunPod, as well as Instagram at GamesAreFunPod. Make sure to give us that follow over on twitch.tv/GamesAreFunPodcast so that you can know when we're going to go live next on our next live stream. And make sure you join our Discord server where we're having conversations over there on the daily. We're talking about movies, we're talking about video games, TV shows, food, music. I mean, pretty much anything. So if you just want an awesome community to chat with, head over to our Discord and join that. You can also email us at the email address contact@gamesarefunpodcast.com. But I don't even think I don't even know the last time I got an email, but I still plug it anyways. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 122 Twitch chat. We're going to hang with you for the post chat here for a little bit, but audio listeners, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you all on episode number 123.